Hi everyone, my name is Nandikal and welcome back to the Faculty of Management Speaker Series online. In this episode, Kathy Malley will be joining us from Greater Moncton, New Brunswick, and it is my absolute pleasure to introduce her. Kathy attained a Bachelor of Education from the University of New Brunswick, following studies in fashion merchandising and design at Ryerson University. Among the many hats that she wears as Vice President of the family-owned business, Kathy contributes to the company's strategic management through her public relations and human resources expertise. Prior to joining Malley Industries in 1999, she established a public relations consultancy that provided media relations and editorial services to clients in the financial services, transportation, technology, and manufacturing sectors. An accredited public relations practitioner, Kathy has served as Chief Examiner of Accreditation for the Canadian Public Relations Society and on the Society's National Council on Accreditation. In 2013, she was honored with an Outstanding Achievement Award and was inducted into the CPRS College of Fellows. Kathy is actively involved in her community. She is the chair of the Canadian Council on Rehabilitation and Work, a national organization dedicated to employment for persons with disabilities, and serves on the Greater Moncton Romeo LeBlanc International Airport Board. Her involvement with the University of New Brunswick's International Business and Entrepreneurship Center and its Apex Business Plan competition spans over a decade. In 2008, she and her husband Terry were co-honored with the Certificate of Appreciation from UNB's Faculty of Business Administration. Partners in business and life, Kathy and Terry have raised two wonderful children, Miles and Kayla, both of whom work with the family business. Hi Kathy, welcome to the speaker
Hi,
series and thank you for joining us online today.
thank you for having me.
How has your summer been? It's almost over, just another week.
Yeah. Well, Terry and I are heading to the cottage this afternoon, so I just noticed in the intro my picture from a few months ago. I now have COVID hair. I'm a different color.
Yeah.
That's okay. I've earned every gray hair. I now no longer color.
So, Kathy, what have been the formative influences in your life?
I think one of the biggest ones for me was I was born with cataracts. I was blind at birth. By the time I was 11, I'd had 9 cataract surgeries. And I don't know if anyone can go through an experience like that, as a child without developing empathy. It taught me empathy at a very young age, but it also taught me the determination to live a full and active life without falling into the frame of mind of, seeking pity or poor me. I've just never had time for that. And I think it's because of my formative years, struggling with terrible vision and, being teased and all of that. It really just taught me to kind of have the grit and the determination to just live a full life.
Thank you for sharing that, Kathy. That is inspiring, and I cannot imagine what it would be to go through something like that. You attained a Bachelor of Education from UNB. Can you tell us a bit about your journey since then?
When I finished university, I started initially at Ryerson studying fashion merchandising and design, and I realized that wasn't really the right path for me. I was going to end up really needing to stay in Toronto. So I switched to UNB and attained an education degree. I enjoyed my practice teaching and I enjoyed certain aspects of that, but I couldn't see myself having a full career as a teacher. It challenged me in the wrong ways and didn't give me enough of the right kind of creative stimulation. So after that, I left teaching and eventually found my way into the public relations business, working for Atlantic Lottery, and then in a consulting capacity before I joined Malley Industries. So I've kind of had a quirky career where I've kind of moved around. I haven't had a lot of jobs, but I've moved into different avenues. One of the things that obviously impacted my life quite considerably was meeting Terry. We met while he was still in university. I was actually teaching or starting to teach in Moncton, and we met at a dorm party at UNB, and actually 5 marriages came out of that party, and we've been together ever since. But Terry, meeting a business-minded person and having a real passion for business, although not growing up in a business family, I think that's kind of how I ended up following the business track.
Thank you for sharing that. In fact, in the last episode, I just spoke to Terry, and he truly is an inspiration to many. Definitely, yeah.
He is.
So you joined Malley Industries as an HR manager, and before that you were running KEM Communications, which you ran for over 10 years. What motivated you to change?
Well, I guess unlike a lot of people, when I left university and even to the point where I got into the PR consulting business, I didn't have a really strong idea of how I wanted to pursue my career and what I wanted to do. And I think that's pretty common and it's pretty typical of a lot of university graduates. You study a program, you think your life is going to go in a certain direction, and mine didn't. It really took me 5 years to reestablish myself from the teaching role to public relations role. And then when we had our children, I wanted more control over our time. I knew I loved the PR business, and there was a lot of interest at that time in producing newsletters for different clients. So my goal when I was actually in labor for our first child, my goal was to start a consultancy, leave the lottery, so I would have more time, my own time, and do consulting while having the flexibility to be there for our baby. I had a very lofty goal. I wanted to earn the same amount of money in my first year of running my PR consultancy as I did working for the lottery, and I achieved that. So I guess that gave me an early indication that you didn't have to follow the same exact path that you had been following, and I wanted to be both a mom and I needed the mental stimulation of still working, but I didn't want to be a weekend parent.
And that's incredible that you were able to achieve that. As Vice President of Malley Industries, do you have a typical day at work?
There's no such thing as a typical day. There just isn't. My role, particularly in the beginning, was an HR manager. I'm less involved in HR now than I once was. But a typical day here, I could be in a production meeting, I could be involved in a video conference with an external consultant. We're in the process of rebranding our 3 primary divisions: ambulances, accessible vehicles, and composite products division. So, that's a lot of back and forth with our consultant, either on, technical matters, design matters with our internal graphic designer. I could also in the same day be consulting with our U.S. business development manager on talking about a potential new dealer's contract. In fact, we did that this past week. I could be writing text for a sales brochure. Also was working on one of those yesterday. And a typical day could also involve discussing a delicate HR matter with our director of operations. Could be attendance. It could be behavioral. I don't deal with the direct HR matters, but I certainly get involved, particularly if it's going to require a phone call to our lawyer. We hope to not have too many of those, but they do happen in a company with lots of employees. The list goes on. So the work is very dynamic. It's fluid. It's never boring because no 2 days are ever alike. And I think that's really what has invigorated me in the family business. When I left the PR business, it was time to leave my consultancy. The year I did 60 newsletters for different clients. I kind of piled the stack of newsletters up, and I got to the point where I didn't even have to interview the potential interviewee. I could almost put my mind in their head and write. And I felt that I was going to become staid and bored. A stack of 60 newsletters for 5 different clients. That was enough, and I really needed more. So I guess I now have it because no 2 days are ever the same.
And I think it takes a lot of courage to embrace change, especially when you've already grown in an industry for so long and then making a change to something completely new and a lot of new things. It takes a lot of courage.
Well, thank you. Humans are funny creatures. We resist change, and in a lot of cases, people would rather suffer than change. I find it profoundly heart-wrenching when you hear someone complain over and over and over again. They don't like their job, they don't like what they're doing, they don't like their life, and I don't get that kind of person. If you're not engaged in what you're doing, you're not happy in your life, then you have the power, you have the freedom to change it. And I've said this to employees, I'll work with them if they're struggling, we'll move mountains, but don't come with the same problem over and over and over again without coming with a solution. Like, I have no time for people that it's always, they believe it's always someone else's fault. Your happiness comes from inside you, and if you're not happy, then you change it. You have the responsibility to change it.
Yes, I guess we have to take ownership of our own lives.
Absolutely, yeah.
You are also a board member for other organizations. Why is it beneficial for business leaders to be on external organization boards?
I think there's a lot of benefit for business leaders to be part of other boards of directors. It broadens your perspective on how to do things yourself. Every organization has unique qualities and they all face similar challenges.
Okay.
So the involvement on external boards provides you with an opportunity for fresh ideas, meeting new people. It also gives back to the community, either locally, regionally, or nationally. But you'll learn a lot, and a lot of the processes or the challenges that you hear about on other boards gives you a different perspective of how to handle similar things back in your own company. So it broadens your view.
Okay.
I think it's very important.
Malley Industries has clients in various geographic regions. How does communication and public relations play a role in growing the business?
We've been very, very visible in our local and regional market. And I think that is, has a lot to do with, my background in the PR business. We wanted to be well known. We used to be invisible, and we made a strategic decision a number of years ago to get out there in the business community and start sharing a story. Atlantic Canadians are notorious for being way too humble, and we have to spread the word about the wonderful things that are being done in this province and in this region. And I really took that to heart and wanted to make sure that Malley Industries positioned itself as a viable and capable company for manufacturing. It's relatively easy in the Atlantic region, I think, because I know the market. Trying to get known in another market, not so easy, particularly in the US. Almost everything in the United States is monetized. There's very little opportunity for editorial coverage. If you produce it, someone's got their hand out, they're looking for money, and you got to pay for it. And I found that very, very challenging because I'm not a fan of advertorials. Okay. I've always had very, very good success achieving news coverage for the company in editorial. So to go down the route of paying to say, we produce great things, it's really inconsistent and incongruent for me. So I will not do an advertorial that is a masked ad. I just, pretending to be an ad, or pretending to be editorial, but you pay for it. I just flatly refuse. So we've passed up numerous opportunities for, exposure in the States. Instead, what we've done is we've really concentrated, rather than paid advertising, which we've done almost none. I don't see the value in paying for an advertisement in a publication for something as sophisticated as an ambulance. It's hard to explain to somebody that our interior is gives them more usable space when they can't get the spatial perspective from a piece of paper. So we've done it differently. We've really worked hard on the relationship building among our growing dealer network. we've become known with our dealers as being a reputable, responsible company. So they tell our story. And, that third party endorsement from someone else saying, not only do these people produce really good quality products, they're good people to deal with.
Yeah.
And that is so much more powerful than us, raising a flag saying, we're great, we do great stuff. And, that just, the American market is just so very different. It's better to have the story told by locals. So, our dealer network has been really, really helpful. We have been known, though, to confuse people with some of our terminology, and you have to be really careful. For example, we refer to the cabinetry in our ambulance. We always call them bins. And we had a group of our dealers here a couple of years ago, and one of them in a very strong Texas accent said, what are these bins? And we started laughing. I said, well, we said there are cabinets. So now we realized we have to call them cabinets because that's what they call them in the U.S.
Correct.
And we confuse them. So we've done that a lot with our terminology, and we really have to work on it. It's helpful because we have a business development manager who is actually Canadian, but he's lived in Florida for years. Yeah. He's kind of our litmus test of, have we Canadianized something to the point where it's not going to be understood in the States? So any of the documentation, publications always go through him, just to make sure that, we're maintaining that U.S. style, right down to feet and pounds versus meters and centimeters and kilograms.
I think you raised some really important points. Authenticity and word of mouth are so much more powerful than, if I walk into a store and if I meet an honest salesperson who says, this might not meet your needs completely, but tells me what the situation is actually, I would much rather buy that product just for his honesty.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's dealing with people on a human level and a genuine level.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody fails to respond to that, but a lot of times they don't believe it because they think you're too good. Canadians are known for being very polite, and we always tease our U.S. counterparts. If you step on my foot, I'm Canadian, I will apologize. It's just who we are.
And culturally, are there any other differences between your clients in Canada and the United States?
There are huge differences between Canada and the U.S. And ignore those items at your peril. You really need to understand if you're dealing in a different country, and quite frankly, just elsewhere in the country, in our own country, you have to be very sensitive to the way business is done, to how people communicate, to what what their feelings are about certain topics. And you just have to be open and honest, but you have to be careful. We've found that our customers in the U.S., I think there are so many companies that just don't do what they say they're going to do. They're very, very brash and very bold and, make very bold statements. They're always first. They've always invented everything. But people are really used to terrible service or not complaining in an appropriate manner. They don't say anything. They'll just, talk about your company negatively, and they won't tell you something's gone wrong. We have found that our customers are genuinely surprised by our commitment to their satisfaction. They just don't believe it. They don't believe that we actually do care. It's almost like they expect poor service. So when they get service, when we jump right on something, they're completely taken aback. When it comes to the U.S. dealing, one thing that you have to be really concerned about is you don't ever share opinions about their politics. And I mean that with all sincerity. And we've worked really closely with our salespeople and our other staff. Keep your opinions to yourself. That means no wisecracks, no jokes, no comments for or against political or religious figures, no entering into any types of discussion with regard to how things are going politically. Nothing can derail a sale, and I mean a big one, faster than making that kind of mistake. You just don't know their politics, and, we don't appreciate people having opinions about how things are run in our country. So we just kind of stay away from that. And it's really important, whatever region or country you're dealing in, just stay out of their politics. It's just the safest bet.
That's an important point to note. In the previous episode, Terry spoke about the dealership model of Malley Industries. From a legal
Mhm.
perspective, how do you safeguard the company when you're operating in international jurisdictions?
One of the biggest things we've worked on over the last 5 years. We've only really been active in the U.S. for about 5 years,
Okay.
and we started early on developing a contract for our dealers to provide protection. A lot of contracts that any company will sign with someone that is selling something to them for resale. A lot of these contracts are very one-sided. They provide a lot of protection for, the company that's selling you or allowing you to sell their goods, but they provide you with no protection. We wanted to do things differently. We wanted to provide protection, mutual protection.
Okay.
Wiggle room for both of us to have a no-fault divorce if things didn't go well. And we've spent a lot of time putting wording in our contracts. So when handling our dealer contracts, we recognize that we're dealing with 50 little countries, 50 different countries. They all have different laws. And one of the things that we learned very quickly is every one of them, when they're reviewing our contract, they'll have it vetted by their lawyer, and we encourage that. And it'll come back from their lawyer saying, any legal proceedings will be handled in the Commonwealth of Virginia or the state of New York or the state of Maine or New Hampshire. And that's just a full stop no. Sorry, guys, not going to happen. If there's going to be any legal dealings, they're going to happen in New Brunswick. And this just drives them crazy. So we spend a lot of time hand-holding the dealer to say, listen, we've been in business more than 40 years, and we've not actually ever had to go to court.
Okay.
And we do that because we're relationship builders. We work it out. And I often tease them and say, look, it's kind of like a marriage. You don't want to end up in divorce court. You want to work it out. And that's what we do. And once they realize that we mean that, that problem goes away. Because I will not agree to domicile any legal proceedings in their state. Just not happening.
Okay. I guess that's a non-negotiable
It is.
on your end.
It is.
Yeah.
We know how litigious the U.S. is. I mean, the least little thing, they're going to have their lawyer call our lawyer, and it's just not the way we do business. Canadians are non-litigious, whereas in the States they're always in court. It's it's an industry in itself that has gone far and above reasonableness, we feel. And for the most part, we have had to end some dealer relationships, but we haven't ended up in court. We've been able to end the relationship without a lot of a high body count, so to speak, because we just don't want to go that route.
And I guess
Right.
in Canada, a lot of businesses just are running on good trust and aligning values.
Yeah, and we have had to distance ourselves from some dealers who either misrepresented us or our products or have not behaved fairly with their customers. So it's a two-way street. They're representing us and our products, and if they're not doing so in an appropriate fashion, then we'll move away. We've also moved away. We had a situation. We had a really early on in our U.S. dealings. We sold a couple of ambulances into Arizona, and we had some product problems because the new ambulance was finished and it immediately left our factory and was driven to Arizona. It arrived in 110-degree weather, and they sat in the customer's compound for, I don't know, a few days or a week. So there were some glue let go and some pieces, just things, they didn't look pretty when they opened them up. Instead of the customer notifying us that, things didn't hold up, the customer was talking, basically, denigrating our product, saying they weren't quality and yada yada. We found out about it kind of through the back door, and we were horrified because we didn't know. And as soon as we found out, we immediately got on fixing. In fact, we sent a guy to Arizona to work with another manufacturer. We pulled the vehicle into their factory, used our equipment and some of their resources, and we fixed the problem.
Yeah.
And they were pleasantly surprised. I actually met the customer face to face at a trade show in the U.S. and I told him we weren't prepared to do business with him anymore, and he was quite shocked because he had a huge fleet. And I said, why didn't you call us and have us on the map the day you found out? I said, we can't fix a problem that we don't know about. And I was really upset. And I said, we can't afford to have you as a customer. And unless your people are willing to disclose, pick up the phone and call us with an issue, or if you hear about it, immediately call. But, to wait months, weeks or months, that's not acceptable. So you're not the kind of customer that we can trust to be open and honest with us. We can't sell to you. And I walked away. He was kind of surprised. And that hurt because we could have eventually maybe. So we have since sold that company some, but I had to make a stand for the reputation of our company.
Right.
I mean, so early in our foray in the U.S., we did not need a major customer slamming our product. We didn't need that. So we just ended it.
And I guess open lines of communication is all that was needed in this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He didn't believe it. He was so used to getting terrible service and complaining about the other companies that provided his company with ambulances. He didn't believe it that he could actually pick up the phone, or his people could, and complain about something, and that we would do right by them, because we do. We want our customers. Word of mouth and referrals is critical to our business, and he had it all wrong.
How has the COVID-19 changed the way you grow and build on existing partnerships?
It's changed a lot because we've been so used to, over the last few years, hosting our annual dealer days in June. They come here for 2 or 3 days. We wine them and dine them, take them on a lobster cruise. They have a lot of fun. It's very intensive product training, and they get their hands dirty on the production floor. Plus, we have a lot of meetings, technical training, so that they really go away knowing the product and knowing the people, getting to know our facility and how we handle things. They can put a face to the name of the engineering and the technical people, and it's really been meaningful. That all went away when we had to close our facility to the public. So instead, we've invested in some pretty fancy technology to bring them to us virtually.
Wow.
So we've got some funky little machines in our various boardrooms where it can almost make the person feel like they're sitting in the same room with you. We've increased our connectivity on the production floor so that our salespeople no longer drop calls when they go into the factory. They're able to video call from the production floor, so they can show somebody how something is installed, or actually show them while something is being installed. We recently had a new customer from New York wanted to come and inspect their ambulance in person, and we said, you can't do it. You can't come to New Brunswick. If you're prepared to spend 2 weeks in a hotel, or with prearranged services for your food for 2 weeks, we still have to go through WorkSafe New Brunswick to make sure that we can safely handle your presence in the factory. And do you want to have that much time away? So instead, they're doing Skype calls with this customer and trying to accommodate him so that he knows what he's getting without actually physically examining it. We've stopped printing large quantities of brochures. We used to do, hundreds or thousands, depending on what trade shows we were attending in the States. Although people are tending to not want to be lugging stuff away from conferences now, so they often want an emailed version anyway. But, instead of printing large quantities, we've produced many of our marketing materials, that we've rebranded. Everything's emailable. So our customers, our dealers can reach out to their customers in a different way. And, it's a bit of a money saver, but mostly it's to accommodate the fact that they can't meet face to face. We actually learned that a customer of ours, a new customer, was using our ambulances strictly for picking up COVID patients. And this kind of ties into the whole communication aspect and how different things are one country to the other. In Canada, we would not be overt in kind of pounding the pavement and saying, our products are easier to sanitize, faster to clean, therefore they're being used exclusively, for COVID patient transport because the customer can accommodate more patients or stay in service longer. We're sensitive to promoting that in an overt way in the US, mainly because our competitors have way more financial resources to come after us. We'd rather kind of be under the radar a little bit. Okay. So we've produced a brochure to highlight the fact that our ambulances are pathogen preventive. We've called it Fighting Pathogens by Design. We've distributed it to our dealers and they can share it with their customers. But we're not doing news releases to draw attention to that fact, because we feel that it's still such a sensitive topic in the U.S. There's so many differing views on the whole concept of the pandemic that we just want to stay out of the controversy area. So we're kind of doing a soft launch of that instead.
Wow. What qualities does Malley Industries look for when hiring someone new?
We look for, obviously we try to find people for production that have, some basic hand-eye coordination and basic tools capabilities. Some of the roles are not highly technical at the beginning. Others are, metal fabrication, vehicle electronics, automotive upholstery, those require, significant professional training. But we look for people with an attitude that, particularly younger people now, we're trying to lower the average age of our workforce. And we're looking for younger people who want an experience in the workplace. They want to feel proud about, what they're producing. And we can certainly offer that. We manufacture things that help people either save lives with our ambulances, give people in wheelchairs the ability to get out in the community, they get mobility, and our composite products provide safety in vehicles with partitions and wall liners and accessories that provide a safer, quieter work experience. So that resonates with a lot of younger people who don't just want a job. They want to work for a company they can feel proud of. In some cases, we'll do phone interviews prior to the candidate coming in for some of the higher level roles, just to see whether or not the person is a fit. Usually if the first question out of their mouth is, how much do you guys pay? We probably don't go further, because we're not interested in wage slaves. We want, we provide good value, good paying jobs for a good effort in the workplace.
I guess you're looking for intrinsically motivated employees versus people who are motivated by money.
Yeah, attitude is everything. I once interviewed, I didn't interview, I put the run to a young fellow who, we were a bit late getting to the interview, and I went by him and said, look, we're tied up with the other candidate, we'll be with you in about 10 or 15 minutes. And the kid looked at me and said, well, lady, you don't hire me right today. I'm on the next plane out of here to out west. I'm going to Alberta. And it struck me when he said that. And I stopped dead in my tracks and I said, have a nice flight. And I canceled his interview. Didn't waste my time with him. People have to realize that, when you're applying for a job, we don't want somebody that's just going to be gone for 20 cents an hour more or $1 an hour more. That's not what this is about. And that young lad would have gone to Alberta. I didn't care. I think I shocked him because he looked a little surprised. He thought he was going to kind of swagger his way into a job, and he just used the wrong approach. Just didn't work. I thought, he had attitude written all over him, and goodbye.
So I guess between aptitude and attitude being a positive attitude, you would tend towards a positive attitude?
Absolutely. And that doesn't mean if they don't have an aptitude, we've unfortunately had to say goodbye to some wonderful people who just could not do the work. You need both. Yeah. But I will do without rather than hire someone who's capable that is going to have a bad attitude. Poor attitude is like a cancer in the workplace. You get one person who, is gossipy or trying to stir things up or
Spreads.
extreme negative, it drags everybody down. And you either check that at the door or you don't come in here. And, we have sent people home with, due to their poor attitude or their performance. If they don't, you have to perform. We're hiring you to do a job. That's what work is. It's doing jobs that people are willing to pay you to do.
Correct.
So, you don't always get to pick and choose. You hope that people like at least some of their work. I don't like everything I do, but for the most part, I enjoy what I do. So you have to be realistic that, not every job is going to be wonderful all the time.
Yeah. And how do you generate interest in employee positions you are looking to fill at Malley?
I think one of the things that has helped us generate interest is the fact that we've been quite high profile in this region. So, the company is known. We've become known as a good company to work for and recognized for providing interesting and rewarding work. That helps immensely in building the pool of talent. It also means that we don't have to do quite as much explaining when we advertise for positions. We still do explain who we are and what we produce, but people generally come in here, for interviews with some sense of knowing what we do. We emphasize that they'll be working with doing producing products that are meaningful for people, younger workers that really resonates. At the moment, we've in the last couple of months we've had a fair number of job openings, and we've been able to fill them. We've had a flood of applicants. COVID has made it a bit more difficult in the sense that where we would normally certainly look at applicants from outside the region, in these times it's a little more difficult. We have been quite keen on employing people from other countries, but have basically given up on trying to work with people in advance of getting permission to work in Canada. Just too long. It takes forever. I don't care what they tell you, how quickly they can advance, bringing people in from other countries. It's going to be months and potentially up to a couple of years. We can't afford to wait that long.
Yeah. And what advice would you give UNB students who are looking to have successful careers in New Brunswick?
In New Brunswick? Well, I think in any place, but particularly we love to see young people recognize that there are really good careers in this province. We don't want to export our talent. One of the things that students need to recognize about their career is it's a journey. You're starting with your basic education, but it's going to take you years, or it should take you years. Don't expect to get the fantastic, great paying job, most engaging job in the world day one. I mean, it's through incremental changes and learning that you develop your career acumen. You have to take the long view to advance incrementally based on the value that you contribute to your employer. And being humble. I really want students to recognize humility goes a long way in any relationship. Even at, age 64, for me, I still hope to maintain, an aura of humility. You'll never know it all. And nothing marks a newbie more than false bravado or unrealistic expectations. So, temper those. I've often given advice to students, looking for their first career job. I spoke to a group of business students a few years ago, and one of the women said, when is it okay to ask for how much they're going to pay me? And I said, never, don't ever. My advice to that class was, do your homework on the companies that you're applying to, and say something like, I've done my homework. I know you're a reputable company to work with. I know that I'm a new student, a recent grad. My expectations are not going to be unrealistic. I trust that your company is going to treat me fairly and start me at a reasonable wage, and then I'll earn my way, further along. And if you take that kind of approach, you'll get a good job in a company that will treat you right. But you got to do your homework. I mean, if the company has a reputation of not not providing, opportunities, then don't apply. So, it's a two-way street. But I think if you present that you are open to recognizing that you don't have all the pieces that they're going to need, that you're going to learn from them, and you're willing to not take as big a salary at the beginning because they're going to be helping you learn. And I think that can go a long way in helping your career advance. Be genuine. Don't try to be what you think the company wants. Be yourself. Have the courage to be who you are, your authentic self. That just will earn you a lot more recognition in the workplace if you, just kind of settle down and be yourself, and allow yourself to be who you are. Don't sell out for the big money grab. That I've seen that happen so many times, where the goal is the biggest bucks. And I mean, in a way, it sounds, earlier in this session, I said, I made the decision I wanted to make the same amount of money I had at Atlantic Lottery in my own business, because I knew what I was good at, and went after that kind of work. But until you know what you're really good at, don't go for the money grab. Go for the experience. Look at the opportunities where you can have you can learn and grow and contribute to your career development, because every one of these experiences, they may not be great. And I remember we had a young high school kid he was going to go into engineering, and he applied for a summer job to work in production. And he was pretty self-assured young man. And I asked him, I said, we'll get you to probably sweep the floor at the beginning and, clean up after other people's work. What's motivating you to do that? And he smiled and he said, these people are going to work for me someday. So he got it. He really got it. He wanted to understand the psyche of, production workers and people that will do the kind of work that he was going to be designing. And he wanted to get inside their heads, and he did. And he's a very successful engineer today. So, good on him at age 18. He knew exactly how to get himself prepared for his growth as an engineer. And it may take you years to establish yourself in your career, but that's part of the fun. And be patient. Let yourself make the mistakes. Own up to them. The goals should be fulfilling and rewarding work. It won't seem like work if you enjoy it.
Kathy, thank you so much for sharing that. I think there was some really good advice in there and lots of golden nuggets.
I think it's great that you're doing this kind of program for students to help them kind of get inside the heads of some former UNB grads. You're getting a better education, I think, than, when Terry and I went to university. I mean, there just wasn't the level of engagement that universities are going to now, and I think that's fantastic. So I think students will be better prepared to hit the ground running than we were when we got out. I didn't have a clue what I was going to end up doing when I got out of university, but I knew how to learn, I knew how to study, and I knew how to work, and the rest comes over time. Don't be afraid to change careers. I've done it numerous times.
On that note, on behalf of the Faculty of Management, the UNB community, and everybody else watching this video today, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview, sharing your experiences and learnings with us today. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
You as well.